Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight for the Barney Miller's Tech and Design Facebook Live event. We're excited tonight to be talking about home audio and entertainment with McIntosh. I'm Risa Schultz. I'm joined by Allison Lopez. We're from We Connect, and we're going to be moderating tonight's conversation. And we're joined by a panel of experts here tonight. So I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself. Just tell us your name, a little bit about your company and what you do. Barney, why don't you start?
I will. I'm Barney Miller, the third generation owner of Barney Miller's Incorporated in Lexington, Kentucky. This is our 99th year in business, so we're really proud of that. So our heritage goes way, way back, obviously, and I think a great match with a company like McIntosh, and we're so excited tonight to be talking about McIntosh, such a great brand.
Great. Tim?
Yes, I'm Tim Pierce. I've been with Barney since 1998. I've been there over 23 years. I'm in project management and also system design, sales. I typically have the job from inception, then I take it through customer exploratory, and then also I follow up at the end of the sale. So I'm pretty much throughout the whole design and sales process.
Great. Okay. Evan?
Yep. Hey, Evan Grimm. I work at the McIntosh Group, the parent company for McIntosh Laboratory, and I've been there for about 2.5 years. So I'm the regional sales manager for the Mid-Atlantic region, and that includes the wonderful state of Kentucky, and I help to support Barney Miller's.
Great. And Ken?
Hi, I'm Ken Zellen, and I am Director of Sales Training for McIntosh. So I create all the documents that give everyone the knowledge they need to talk about McIntosh. So I'm like the product expert, I guess you could say.
Oh, very nice. Well, it sounds like we're going to have a lot of opportunity to learn a lot of cool things about McIntosh tonight. So good. Well, if you're watching at home, feel free to leave comments or questions in the chat box, and we'll get to those towards the end of our conversation. So let's get started. Well, Barney, I want to first congratulate you on your 99-year anniversary in business. That is a pretty amazing accomplishment. So
well, thank you very much. We've had a lot of help with great people over the years, and that's been a big key, and a lot of repeat business from clients. So we really appreciate that.
That's great. So I imagine over the years, you've worked with a lot of different audio companies and you've built a lot of audio systems. So talk to us a little bit about what the key considerations are when you're building a home audio system. Like, what do your customers need to kind of think about?
Well, there's various types. I think there's the old, stereo systems, what people think of, but there's also multi-room audio and then surround sound systems. So kind of depends on what you're trying to accomplish there. Sometimes it's all three in one house. Different rooms can come into play, but for the most part, we can make just about any room work with, calibration and the right speaker placement and things like that. So really, it's very flexible nowadays, but it does depend on what you want to accomplish, how many people you want in the room. Do you just want to sit in a room by yourself and have a glass of wine and listen to a stereo system, or do you want to have a bunch of neighbors and family over to watch a great movie with a great sound system? So it's all over the place, really. And it does take some experience to make it sound right and work right and be easy to use. And that's where I think companies like Barney Miller's really comes into play.
So it sounds like you really listen to the lifestyle of your customers to kind of know what the right type of system to design for them is.
Yeah, it's very important to know their habits and, their wishes, and you need to, come up to a good agreement ahead of time and a good plan.
Great.
Awesome. Great. So, Barney, you're a legend in your market. The company is a legendary brand, similar to McIntosh. Ken, can you tell us a little bit about the history of McIntosh and your history with McIntosh? Because it's a great story.
Okay. Well, I was actually working in New Jersey at a store, and I was 15 years old. It was my first job, and it was a hi-fi store. I used to ride my bicycle down on weekends and help them out on Saturdays. And we sold basically all the standard top brands. We had Bozak speakers and Tandberg and McIntosh and Dual and Kenwood and, just all the great brands, Nakamichi. And it occurred to me that the salespeople at the store knew quite a bit about everything, but were experts on nothing. There were too many brands to be an expert on everything. And I decided early on, I have no idea why I came up with this at age 15, that I wanted to be the ultimate expert on something. And I actually took home literature on everything the store carried and decided on which brand I was going to become an expert on. And I just voted to myself that the company I thought that might stand the test of time out of all those brands would be McIntosh. And I would become the expert on McIntosh. Now, I was right, because they're the only company that still exists out of all the brands that we sold at that store. So I've done one thing my entire life, and that is be involved with McIntosh. And in fact, when I went off to college to study electrical engineering, I went in one day to a new hi-fi store. I was in Boston, and a new store had opened in Newton, Massachusetts. And I went in there to visit it. A new McIntosh dealer, got to see it. And they were desperate for sales help. And they persuaded me to come work for them on weekends. What I didn't know was that the woman who owned the store was dating the president of McIntosh.
Oh,
So
Wow.
for 6 months on Saturdays, the store is closed on Sundays. She and I and Gordon Gow, who was the head of McIntosh, ran that store on Saturdays. And if there were no customers in the store, he'd say, let's go fix an amplifier, because we did repairs. And he'd take apart a McIntosh amp and teach me how to fix it. And these things, if I made up the story, you'd say it's too far-fetched, it's ridiculous.
Amazing.
And then I ended up buying a hi-fi store that was bankrupt in San Francisco. The owners wanted to get out of it. It was losing money. And they said $50 down and it's yours. And I bought it and turned it into the world's biggest Mac dealership for 16 years till I sold it. So I've only done one thing. I do it well, but I have a limited skill set.
Amazing.
I cook
Amazing.
really well.
And you were involved in hiring this guy, Evan?
Well,
No,
Evan,
vice versa.
Oh, okay.
I was in Philadelphia helping out a store there for about 1.5 years. And Evan was the sales trainer for a headphone brand that we sold. Evan, pronounce the name for me.
Yeah, I was at Odyssey. They make plain
Okay.
magnetic headphones. Yep.
I always mispronounce the name. And he's doing a sales training for the store. And I'm picking up my phone and texting McIntosh saying, okay, we got to hire this guy.
Right.
And we did. So we
There you go.
stole him away.
Yeah,
Well,
you saw talent and you went for it. So
Oh, yeah.
This really gives us a really interesting sense of what Macintosh is about. They got you young, and you grew with them, and you were we feel the passion. When we spoke earlier, we can definitely tell that there was so much passion coming out of Macintosh. And Evan, I know you're now involved, and obviously now Barney and Tim with your company. I mean, this is the kind of thing. As you said, Ken, you can't make up, right? It's something you feel when you see a product or a brand and you connect with it. It ignites something. So we want to put up a screen to show some of the product. And Ken, if you could be so kind enough to kind of run through a little bit what we're looking at, so that as the conversation unfolds, we kind of get an idea of what you're talking about.
Sure.
Can you
Well,
see? Can you see the screen?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
So McIntosh produced tube amplifiers in the 50s and 60s. And the reason we used tubes was transistors didn't exist basically to do the job. So everything had to be tubes. And in the late 60s and 70s, pretty much the whole market shifted away from tubes into transistors. And that made hi-fi lighter, smaller, and less expensive. So those are all three good things. But a lot of musicians felt that the sound quality wasn't quite as good as tube units. Tube units require some maintenance, but there's a lot of musicians who still prefer the sound of tubes. Well, at McIntosh, McIntosh has never been interested in making anything smaller, lighter, or less expensive. We just want to make things that sound better. So we have gone back into production of tube units. So we make both transistorized, which is also called solid state, and tube units. The tube units need a little bit of maintenance, but some people feel there's a warmth and a richness of sound that a tube has that nothing else does. And we also produce units that have both. So in the upper left-hand corner, there's one of our turntables with one of our most popular products. It's an amplifier that's half tubes and half transistors. So we use transistors in the power section and tubes in the preamp section, which means it needs very little maintenance. You might have to replace a preamp tube every 20 years, and yet it can still have high power and be reasonably priced. And that was a new entry-level piece that's become wildly popular worldwide. Below it on the bottom left is one of our very best preamp products, and that has tubes in it. The system shown in the middle is a combination of tubes and transistors. And for those too young to have ever seen what a tube looks like, on the right, we're showing one. That's a power tube, so it's the size of a small glass. And they do wear out. And when they wear out, you just pull them out and plug in a new one. It's like replacing the water filter in your refrigerator. It's about that easy.
Wow.
So, but some people don't want to put up with any maintenance. So we produce all transistor equipment also. So we're completely unique in the industry. Some companies are known for tube units, some are known for solid state. And you said to every audiophile, name all the companies that are equally well respected for both.
Yeah.
They'd
only come up with one answer, and that's
One.
McIntosh.
Very nice. Okay. So I'm
Love
gonna,
it. Love it. And what about this? Is this your speaker?
No, it is not.
That's not your speaker. Okay.
Nope, it
But you
looks
do-
very
you do sell
lovely.
speakers. I know, but we
Yep.
don't know whose it is.
Right.
But you do sell speakers, right?
We sure do. There's a little one of our speakers peeking out on the
this
left.
one
That's it.
in the
Yep.
top. Yes.
Yep. You can always tell a McIntosh speaker because there's usually lots of tweeters in it, that little
Right.
speaker on top. And the reason we're known for using so many tweeters, and we can use up to 50 of them in a speaker, is McIntosh builds big amplifiers that can play really loud. You don't have to buy a big, powerful Mac amp, but we do build them. And we did the wall of sound. We did the sound for a lot of concerts. Woodstock was McIntosh. And a lot of our customers like to play their music kind of loud. And usually high-end audio that sounds really detailed is not really capable of playing loud. Like you wouldn't take a Ferrari off-road. And we want to build something that not only gives you the delicacy of music, but that you can turn up to 11 on the scale of 1 to 10 when no one's home. And the only way to build a speaker that can play really loud is to have a lot of drivers in it. So that's what we do. We build specialized speakers for people who want to be able to turn it up to 11. And that's actually me when no one's home.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Okay.
Great. So, Evan, tell us a little bit about the customers. Who's the McIntosh customer?
I mean, really anyone that has a passion for music or, watching TV and movies are ideal Macintosh clients. Our company is well known for a variety of products, but I think we currently make nearly 100 products, if not maybe a little bit over 100 products. So there truly is something for everyone. Like whether you're just getting into the hobby or you're an enthusiast or you want like a dedicated room in your dwelling that's for just 2-channel or, for theater, there's products for them all. So, I think Barney kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when he was talking about unwinding after a day of work, the glass of wine, listening to music, or, having family or friends over. We make products that can help drive speakers around the house and in outdoor zones. And we make some of the coolest theater products out there as well. So for those folks that really want like a true dedicated home theater, and even as Ken mentioned, like with some of our newer products we just launched for folks that are just getting into the hobby, there's a Macintosh piece for everyone. So
Great. So, I was on your website earlier and I noticed that there were systems. You sell systems. And I thought that was unusual because usually when I look at an audio company, it's either most of the times you're seeing speakers, right? You're not seeing systems. So, either Evan or Ken, if you can talk to us a little bit about why systems.
Well,
I can maybe take that one and then Ken can help me fill in if needed. But what's really cool is Macintosh has been manufacturing things in Binghamton since the early 50s, and we've been manufacturing here in the States since 49. In the 60s, we transitioned into some products where we debuted glass faceplates. And you'll notice, like if you go onto the Macintosh website, the vast majority of our products show a glass faceplate like front, right? And that's cool for a number of reasons, but one of the coolest reasons to go with Mac is that years and years and years down the road, you'll be able to kind of integrate new components into your system and they'll continue to match the aesthetic of products from over the last 6 decades, right? So, not everybody pulls the trigger per se on a complete Macintosh system all at the same time. They like to piece it together. And technology, as we know, it becomes obsolete quickly in some areas. And so, the nice thing about our products is we have the ability to kind of help those clients out piecing things together. And then as things upgrade, they can, just purchase the one piece of gear they need. So in terms of systems, we have, like I said, we kind of cater to any possible need. Like we have integrated amps for those folks that want a great 2-channel system but are limited on space. We have separated components for folks that really just want the best sonic performance and have tons of room to do it in. Same thing could be said on the theater side where, we have like rack mountable, smaller home theater processors and amplifiers now that, help the custom integrator and, getting the products into a rack where it's out of sight. And then we also have home theater products where people want to have it, kind of out in the open and show it off and piece it together, and there can be several components that would go into a Macintosh system. So,
and just like we build different types of components, there are different kinds of customers that walk into the store. You've got the hardcore audiophile who loves to audition the differences between digital cables, and they buy, a preamp as they'll research preamps for a year or research amplifiers for a year. And then there's the other kind of customer who just wants a good system that's going to all work together with one remote control and just be where everything's well matched, and they don't want to have to think about it. I have to tell you, I just bought a new car. And if they said, okay, let's discuss transmissions, and then we'll move on to talking about what axle you want, I would have left. So,
Right.
there's a lot of people who just want to buy a complete system of one brand that works together perfectly, guaranteed. And McIntosh wants to offer that. So
Yeah.
although we cater to a lot of audiophiles, we also cater to all types of people, including the family that has about 20 minutes to pick out, the home theater system because they want to watch a movie tonight. So
Right.
we
So,
different
so what I
products for
get,
different
yeah,
people.
what I get are the systems are well balanced, all the components work together, and
Yep.
it's just out of the box. Earlier, Evan and Tim, you mentioned 2-channel and, the whole, many people don't understand when you say channel, right? So Tim, you probably get this all the time when you talk to customers, is how do you translate the language, right? So tell us a little bit about what does 2-channel mean versus, another system.
Well, 2-channel refers to the recording. Typically, everything has a left and a right channel. And the object of what the artist is trying to do is create a sound stage for the listener. So you can pinpoint, the vocalist is on the right side of the stage, the drummers, are the back of the stage, the guitarist is on the left side. It just gives you a real good spatial representation. And that's what the artist is trying to purvey, and kind of, put you in the recording studio with the artist. And that's typically what they're referring to when they mention 2 channels. So you have a specific left and a specific right channel, but within those 2 channels, you're creating an experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, 2-channel is like an also known as for stereo. And 2 channels, just like when you're listening at home and you got a speaker on the left and right, like Tim said, and mixing engineer, mastering engineer in the studio can kind of pan where they want those instruments and vocalists to appear in that sound stage. So the better the system, the more revealing all those details are. But then if you get into distributed audio, you can have 1 channel in a room, right? And you can send left channel and right channel information to just that one speaker. Or you can have stereo in wall or in ceiling speakers in a variety of zones in the house. And then in theaters, there's all kinds of different layouts and formats. You can have like 5.1, which is like a left, center, right, and 2 rear surrounds with a subwoofer. You can have 7.1, 11.1.4. There's, some of the products that we make can support up to 16 channels of audio. So it just kind of depends if you're, if you have a theater application, distributed audio, stereo. So,
Yep. And if maybe I'll just throw in some information. So in a music venue, you're going to have performers in front of you. So that is really 2-dimensional sound. We have the height that the sound's coming out and where along the width it is. Is it on the right? Is it on the left? Is it in the middle? And that can be done with 2 speakers. But for movies, we might have planes going overhead. We have bombs going off behind us to the left. So that's going to require, to get that sensation, more speakers. So what the first thing that came out was surround sound. And surround sound was you put 2 speakers in the back of the room, and that filled up the room. And if the plane was going overhead, you got that front to back sensation. And that's what we had at first. And then we had digital Dolby, which was
Adobe Atmos.
exactly. Yep. Digital Dolby was, we actually had separate sounds in the left back and right back. So we could actually now have a sound go around the room. It wasn't just front to back and left to right up front, but we had stereo in the front and stereo in the back. Now what we always hear about is Atmos, and Atmos is short for atmosphere. And that's where we put speakers also. Now, these are small and typically built into the ceiling, but we put speakers in the ceiling. Could be 2, 4. If you had a huge room, you could use 6. Well, now we can have height to the sound. So we no longer talk, when we talk about Dolby Atmos, which McIntosh is heavily into, we no longer talk about channels so much. We talk about points in space. We can put a sound 7 feet up, 2/3 of the way back, slightly more to the right. We can pinpoint where a sound is. And what I have to tell you is music sounds fantastic in Dolby Atmos. It's not just for movies, because all of a sudden the audience sound is there. You know, you hear someone sneeze, sounds like they're behind you and to the left, and that adds to the realism. I'm not saying sneezing is, you know, going to help the sound.
Not
but,
these days, right?
But it helps the realism of the whole thing.
Yes.
So for the first time, we have truly 3-dimensional sound. So McIntosh offers home theater systems that can play with either the 2 speakers or 4 speakers, and you can turn on as many as you want. Yes.
And
Yes.
Barney, Barney, you tell us, because I know you have demos in your showroom. Tell us what you have.
I was gonna comment on that. You know, I think that a lot of people would just be amazed how good McIntosh equipment sounds. Until you've experienced firsthand, you really don't know. So, you know, I recommend people bring down the name of a couple of your favorite songs, sit in our sound room and listen to a 2-channel / stereo system that'll really just give you goosebumps. It sounds so good. Then we can move you over to what we call our room 2, which is a theater room. How about a 133-inch, you know, screen and an incredible surround sound system. And again, we can even play concert tracks on there. We've got all kinds of demo material, and you know, movies and concerts are just amazing on that. Also, we've got the you know, the tube integrated amp, the tube / solid state amp, and we integrated amp, I should say. So, you know, if you just wanted an amp for like a, you know, an office or, you know, a room that you just want to sit down and enjoy just some music by yourself, we've got that on display. So I really welcome people to come down to the store. We've got free parking at our back door, and this McIntosh and Barney Millers are just a really good team, I think. So you're going to get quality service, and you're going to get a super quality brand.
That's great.
Amazing.
And it is so true that, especially with audio, and there's nothing like experiencing it, right? Like, and we could talk about it all day long about how amazing it is. But when you're actually in it, listening to it, you know, there's not much sales needed when somebody can sit in a room and feel like you're right in the middle of the music or the movie and the sound.
Most people that we encounter have really never heard a fantastic system, you know, and they're
Yeah.
amazed when they do. It's something they never forget.
Oh, yeah. I remember the first system. It was at Purdue Radio in New Jersey. I was 15 years old, rode my bike down to the store, and they were playing, I think it was Doobie Brothers, Toulouse Street. And
Yeah.
they had this thing cranked up on a pair of McIntosh speakers that had just come out. And I just said, I never knew this existed. And, you know, what you have to do is go into a store and just say, show me some different things. You can't, customers don't always tell you what they want. I was at an apartment in Chicago installing a volume control in a wall in a multi-room system. And the customer, and I'm about to put the plate on the volume control. And they said, no, don't put that plate on. We have Lutron Clara plates. And they brought out a wall plate with no visible screws. I had never seen that. I said, oh, that's so cool. They said, yeah, this just came out. You don't have to see any screw heads. I said, that's amazing. They said, let me show you something more amazing. And they took me into their kitchen and they showed me this thing with a handle. And I said, well, what is it? And they said, it's a dishwasher. I said, but there's no knobs or buttons. They said, it's here on the top edge. It was a Bosch. And they were like the first person in Chicago to get a Bosch. And I said, that's so cool. And they said, oh, no, 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 no. Here's the cool part. And they pressed a couple of buttons and closed it. I said, yeah. They said, it's running.
I couldn't hear it. Yeah.
Who would go into a store and say, I want a totally silent dishwasher with no visible buttons? Unless you know it exists,
Right.
you don't know to
You don't
ask
know.
for it.
Right.
Which is why when people come into a store like yours, they just have to walk around and experience things. No one's going to say, I like a half tube hybrid McIntosh integrated amp, you know, what's that? But once you hear what sounds great, you know it instantly. It's like Art Deco. It's hard to describe. It's easy to recognize when something sounds right.
You don't know. I mean, the main thing is you don't know what you don't know.
No.
Right. Yep.
So it's about, to me, if you're going to invest in high performance audio, you need to experience it. That's the bottom line.
And it's interesting because you use the word invest. So one thing that's really cool about McIntosh is it holds its value because it's handmade and made in the US. And when I say hold its value, I'm talking about units made in the 60s are now worth 12 to 15 times their original price. Things made in the 70s, they're not as collectible because they're kind of too new. They're only worth maybe 2.5 times their original price. And I'll tell you a little story, and I can say this because these brands are out of business, so I'm not picking on them. My first McIntosh sale, fellow comes in, he's looking for a stereo receiver, and I show him a Kenwood. It was $399. And he said, well, that's nice. Told him all about it. He said, what else do you have? I said, well, we have this Tandberg receiver, and it's $599. Well, tell me about it. And I showed him all the cool features that it had that the Kenwood didn't have. And he said, well, that's nice. And show me one more, and then I'll decide. And I said, okay, I'm going to go for broke. I'm going to show him the McIntosh. It was $799. That was a lot of money back then. A Mac 1900 receiver. I told him all about it. He says, I'll take it. First time I sold a piece of McIntosh. Those receivers are now selling. Now that was an all-in-one unit, one of our least collectible. They now sell on the used market for about, I think the average eBay selling price is $780. So that cost $20 for this guy to own for 50 years, assuming he still has it. And he probably does because they all still work.
Yeah.
I mean, so can you imagine if people came into your store, Barney, and said, I'm interested in a McIntosh system and I'd like to finance it. And you said, well, we have a program. If you buy a McIntosh, it's going to cost 22 cents a year to finance it.
Yeah. That's
Right back,
amazing.
I've got a phone ringing. I've got to just silence it.
God, that's so funny. So Tim, I mean, you're face to face with the customers. Have you had some customers that purchased McIntosh already? Have you gone through a sale with McIntosh at Barney
Oh,
Miller?
100%. I really enjoy when customers come in and, you know, some of them have the misconception that they can't hear the difference in better quality audio.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's validating to be able to sit down, kind of tell them what they're going to listen to, tell them the nuances in the music, play the track form, and then get them to reaffirm at the very end. And, you know, you can definitely see a lot of eyes open up, and, you know, it doesn't take, you know, acute hearing to be able to tell the difference. Just always tell them that better electronics screw up the recording less. So you're getting more it's intended, you're getting more of the layers. So usually, you know, all the customers we've sold to have had very positive experiences. Just like Ken said, it's one of the few components out there that maintains its value or even goes up in, you know, value. My dad, for instance, has a set of amplifiers he bought back in the 90s, and they're worth probably twice today than what he paid for them.
Wow.
So, and you know, people too. I mean, we have customers call in that have had McIntosh for years and just like to talk to us about what's new, what's available, what products that they have. So it's definitely, it's a really cool following, and definitely gets people excited to listen to music. So it's just it's an all around good experience.
And
Yeah, so
Evan,
it's safe to say that there's a cult following.
Oh,
It
yeah.
sounds like there's a cult following for
Oh,
Macintosh.
100%.
And
Amazing.
Evan had talked about the glass face plates. It's the coolest thing since we never changed styling. I mean, Macintosh hasn't changed the way it looks since 1970. It's always black glass faceplate, silver end caps. You can mix old and new. So there's a lot of people who might have a Macintosh FM tuner from 1978 that they're never going to give up till the day they die. And then they've got an amplifier from the year 2000 because they upgraded, they wanted more power. But now they want a new control center that has the digital inputs and the computer connection and the inputs for the streamer, and they can add that. But it all looks like a happy family together.
Right.
Where most other companies every year change their styling. And then if you mix new and old, it makes your house look like a hi-fi shop.
Barney, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't exactly talked about the blue meters, I think,
Yes.
you know.
Well, I was just
Yes.
thinking the same thing.
So,
Yes.
Macintosh has this real uniform look, and we were talking about systems, and, they do have a glass faceplate, but it's like these blue lights and these meters in there that are so cool. And Ken, maybe you touch on that. You know way more about that than I do, but it's just the coolest look you can imagine.
It's a really cool look, but they're really important. And, I had this couple that came into my store when I had my store in San Francisco years ago, and they were young and they wanted a system for a party they were having over the weekend. And they bought this nice little system from me, wasn't Macintosh. And then they came back Monday morning, they were all upset. The system was playing for about 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden, they said the sound was so bad you couldn't understand the words. And of course, they had blown out their speakers. And I said, well, you probably played the system too loud. And they said, no, we never turned the volume over 97. And I had to explain that the receiver that they bought can't play over about maybe 75 to 90, depends on the music, before it distorts, and distortion hurts speakers. And then they said, well, what's the highest number we can play it at? And I said, the only correct answer, which is, well, that depends on the music. So it's their fault that they blew the speakers because they played it at too high a number. They have to play it at a lower number. What is that lower number? I won't tell them. I mean, they must have thought I was out of my mind. There really is no solution to this except to have meters. If the meters are going up all the way, you're at the limits of your system. So having a stereo without meters is kind of like driving a car with no fuel gauge. I mean, no matter how careful you are, you're going to run out of gas one of these days. It's going to happen. So Macintosh amps always have meters. And in fact, all professional amps have meters, even if they're maybe flashing lights that serve as meters. A pro in a recording studio, can you imagine if you said to the New York Philharmonic, we were using a mixing console that didn't have any meters, and the flute got all distorted, so we need you to come back tomorrow and redo the symphony for free because we didn't know it was distorting. They think you're out of your mind. So professionals always have meters to tell them when they're at the limit. And Macintosh just put them on almost all their amplifiers. The other thing we have that no one else has is called Power Guard. And if you do go way past the limit, it automatically turns the volume down for a moment. Kind of like I just got a little Mercedes, their little SUV last month. And if it's raining out and you try to accelerate too fast or go through a corner too fast, this little triangle lights up on the dashboard that tells you the car's traction control is taken over. Well, that's exactly what PowerGuard is. In case you ignore all the indicators or you're just a little inexperienced, PowerGuard kind of takes over in case of emergencies. And these are the kind of patented features we have that no one else has. We like the look of the blue analog mechanical meters because they're retro. And some people will say, but they can't respond fast enough because they're mechanical. And we actually patented a circuit which makes them 90% accurate on a peak of music of 1,000th of a second long. We actually know the ballistics, the mechanics of the meter, and compensate for that. So we wanted that look, but we didn't want the sluggishness of the mechanical meter. So we solved the problem and ran to the patent office with the solution.
Love it, love it. And I know the brand McIntosh is the choice of brand for so many famous musicians too.
Oh yeah. Tracy Chapman bought a McIntosh amp for me. Many musicians, a famous violinist who I'm not supposed to mention his name. Yeah, it's just McIntosh and musicians, that's just a marriage made in heaven. Yes. And now we've got McIntosh available in the high-level Jeeps. So that was just introduced. So now when you buy a Jeep Grand Cherokee or their new Wagoneer, which I have to say is a rather breathtaking car, you can get a McIntosh car system in that. So we're going to do for cars what we've done for homes. And when you buy the car system, you get blue meters.
Oh, wow.
You do. You have to.
That's cool.
It's the GPS screen, you press a button when you're not using GPS and meters show up. And it's got PowerGuard, which is really important in a car, because in a car is, where if the windows are down, you're going to run out of power eventually for the audio system. So PowerGuard prevents distortion. So it's a real McIntosh system in the Jeeps.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah,
So now
I love the idea too that McIntosh has a distinctive sound.
Yes.
You mentioned it a bit earlier, distinctive sound, just like, a Ferrari has a distinctive sound,
right?
Or a Maserati has or a Porsche has a distinctive sound. Like, I'm a Porsche girl, so I can hear a Porsche a mile away because of the sound. And I just think it's awesome that you guys, you don't hear a lot of audio companies speak about their distinctive sound.
Yes.
So.
Well, McIntosh never builds speakers or amplifiers that are bright. Bright meaning very trebly with a lot of that. Our amplifiers produce the highest frequencies. They go way past the human hearing limit, and so do our speakers. But a lot of stereo companies, it's like oversalting your food. You go to McDonald's and the French fries have more salt than they needed. Why? Well, they're not, the world's fanciest potatoes. So to bring out what flavor they have, they oversalt it. But you can't have that every day. So a stereo that has the highs and lows turned up, so you'll notice them and say, oh, there's a lot of highs. Oh, now there's a lot of lows. That sounds great, but it's impossible to live with for the long term. So McIntosh tries to build only products that have long-term listenability. And if anyone tells me, well, I think this other system I heard had more highs, and I'm not sure if that's better or worse, I say, come back tomorrow and then come back a third time. But the third time, you'll realize the McIntosh is the right sound. It's not hi-fi, it's music. And there's a real difference.
Spoken like a true audiophile.
Yeah.
Love that. So
you-
I feel like we could continue on all night with this conversation
Yes.
because there's so much enthusiasm and passion and information. But I do have to say it's almost time for us to go. So I want to just get to our chat and see if there's any questions. There is a question actually that kind of speaks to what we've been talking about, the long life of Macintosh. Somebody said that they have a Macintosh receiver from the mid 80s and they want to know if it could work with a new Macintosh system.
Well, all our receivers built in the 80s on the back have these special jacks that say pre-out, main in. And what that allows you to do is add a newer, higher power, lower distortion amplifier to that receiver and still use the radio that's in it and the inputs and the controls. So all our receivers were built from the beginning with the intent that you're going to move up. It
Wow.
might take you 30 years to do it, but you're going to move up. So what this person needs to do is let the store know which model it is, and then they can get in touch with me if you're not familiar with the model, Barney. And then we can make recommendations. You can either switch to a home theater system if they want the movie experience or maybe get more power. But absolutely, all these Macintosh combination receivers were all designed for upgradability.
That's great, which is important.
Yep.
All right, there's one more question. It's a little general, but what is the someone asked, what's the cost of a home theater system from Macintosh? But I know you have a few different systems, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's
Now,
hard to
so
say.
we don't build moderately priced speakers because our specialty in speakers is speakers that can play at concert type volume levels. So a modestly priced system would typically have a Macintosh processor. That's the part that divides the sound into all the channels, and a Macintosh amplifier that gives you your watts of power, and then speakers of whatever you choose. So a home theater system without the TV, with a set of speakers and Macintosh electronics, could be done for somewhat over 10,000, but in that vicinity. A Macintosh 2-channel system could be much less expensive.
Right. And I guess for further questions, people could stop into Barney Miller's and
Absolutely.
go and experience this Mac and have the Macintosh experience and see what it's all about. So
it really is something to experience. I can't stress that enough. And Tim and my guys, they just love doing this stuff. And think of a couple songs you want to hear. Once you hear it on these systems, you'll be amazed. It's unlike anything you've ever heard.
Yep. And one of the coolest things about Macintosh is when we talk in terms of distortion, which is the fuzziness of sound.
Right.
We usually think about playing at high volume, and that's where most stereos run out of steam and distort, and ours don't. But most stereos also distort at very low volumes, which is why you have to turn the volume up before it sounds clear. And that's where you get into the tug of war, because men start losing their hearing after age 28, and women tend to lose their hearing starting at age 71.
Right.
So if we've got a middle-aged couple, very often she's saying, turn the volume down, and he wants to turn the volume up because he wants to hear what he heard when he was 22 years old.
Well,
with the Macintosh, you can play it at a much lower volume and still hear all the sounds. And it tends to prevent a lot of divorces.
Well, so my suspicion is back in the day, that guy was listening to his Macintosh really loud, and that's why he's having hearing problems now.
And too many concerts, or in my case,
yes,
too many trips to the disco sitting on top of the subwoofer.
Yes.
But we won't go there.
Right. Not so that's a conversation for another night, though.
Yes, exactly.
Right. All right.
Really quickly, I wanted to add the other things to let people know that Macintosh is also doing record players and headphones and so many other lifestyle products.
Yeah, we've
Um,
got new streaming devices. We've got even a sound bar that you can just start out with that for Macintosh Sound. It's got
Yes.
blue meters on it.
Oh,
We're
wow, a
getting-
sound bar with blue
I
meters.
know.
Well, Macintosh we're running at the factory as fast as we can to build product, but we won't sacrifice quality. So most Macintosh products, there's a tiny wait time at least we're expanding the factory in Binghamton and hiring more people so that we can maintain
Wonderful.
quality. Because what we don't
Wonderful.
want to do is start having someone else building all our products overseas for us. We have
Yep.
a couple of compact units that are built overseas because we don't specialize in really small stuff. Robots have to build that. But we really want to maintain American made, but we want to expand. We want to have more expensive product and more less expensive product and appeal to an even wider range of people because you have to keep growing or you get swallowed up in the electronics industry. And right now we're in a very powerful position.
Wow. Your history speaks for itself.
Yep.
So really quickly before we go, I am going to share my screen. So if anybody has any questions, wants to know a little bit more, contact anybody. I'm just putting up a contact information. So if anybody wants to reach out to Barney Millers, to Tim, ask any questions, feel free to reach out. I really want to thank you guys. This has been a great conversation. And I wish we had more time because I feel like this conversation could go on for hours.
Well, we'll do it again.
We'll
Sounds
have to,
great.
we're gonna
Yes.
have a second run in our series with
Definitely.
Macintosh to
Yes,
get
we
to all the
love
things
it.
that we didn't get to talk about today, because there are so many interesting things and so many great products. And
Well, I just want to thank you all for participating and thank everybody for listening. We've really enjoyed this series and we hope to keep it going for a long time.
Well, this was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
yes,
And
thanks, guys.
congratulations on your 99th year. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
So
Thank you.
exciting. We'll look forward to celebrating 100 years next year, right?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, the big fat is next year, that's for sure.
Yes.
And we're gonna
We'll all have to get
Macintosh.
together. We'll all get
Yes.
together for a big party to celebrate.
Definitely.
All right. Well,
Great.
thanks
Good
everybody
night.
for watching at home tonight. Stay tuned for the next Barney Miller's Tech and Design Facebook Live coming to you in November. And yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great night. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.